Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Bai Hao must have accidentally revealed his shocking talents in flame conjuring to someone, and incited jealousy. That's what got him killed. I would bet money that the person responsible for his death is that Madame Kai. However, there's still something I can't help but wonder about. Would Bai Hao's father have treated him that way if he knew about his spectacular talents? After all, any necromancer clan would view a genius like that as a true Qilin son. Bai Hao, did you tell your father about how talented you were? If not, then I guess it's a moot point. However, based on what's left of your notes, it seems you really looked forward to telling your father the truth. In fact, you seemed absolutely set on giving him the formula for 15-colored flame. If you did tell your father, and then got killed anyway, then this whole thing is a lot more complicated. Bai Xiaochun wasn't inclined to contemplate the matter, and yet was unable to do anything except that. As he pondered the situation, a feeling of profound sadness rose up in his heart. He couldn't help but feel sorry for Bai Hao, who had simply dreamed of being noticed by his own father. Bai Xiaochun sighed. Bai Hao, I once promised you that if fate would have it, I would get revenge for you. Well, at the moment, I really need your flame conjuring techniques, and I'm not the type of person who takes advantage of others. You might have perished already and left for the underworld, but I still want to take you as my apprentice. I've never had any apprentices before, so you'll be my first. I guess it's just karma. The two of us are separated by life and death, but I'm still going to be your master. On the one hand, Bai Xiaochun felt sad about everything that had happened to Bai Hao. On the other hand, he was using Bai Hao's identity and was trying to track down his research. Starting now, you're my apprentice, and I'm going to find out exactly who it was that killed you. As Bai Xiaochun contemplated this new state of affairs, his eyes flashed with anger, and his opinion of the Bai clan fell even further than before. Sticking his chin up, he coldly murmured, the higher my profile, the sooner they'll try to kill me. Although he knew that he would be putting himself in danger, considering that he was now Bai Hao's master, he had no other choice. Besides, he still had his crystalline soul-hoarding pagoda to fall back on. What a headache. I'm not the type of person who likes to show off, and yet here I am, being forced to do just that. Shaking his head, he sighed, left his hut, and began to make certain inquiries. He soon learned about several places in the Bai clan where clan members would go to participate in trials by fire. All clans had places like that. As for the Bai clan, they had special trials for spirit enhancement, flame conjuring, and soul medicine concocting. There were rewards depending on the ranking one achieved, but Bai Xiaochun didn't really pay much attention to that. Considering all the sects he had been part of in his life, he was familiar with such arrangements. Well, he thought with the shake of his head, I guess I'll just have to go look at the rankings. It was actually somewhat exhilarating to be in the great circle of the gold core stage and be preparing to go mess with a bunch of Foundation establishment children. Filled with excitement, he headed toward the spirit enhancement trial. Before long, he was standing in front of a stone stele that listed the Bai clan's spirit enhancement rankings. Surrounding the stone stele were a handful of spirit enhancement workshops. Compared to the Starry Sky Dao Polarity Sect superstars, this ranking list was rather short. However, Bai Xiaochun didn't care about that. There were actually quite a few people gathered in the area, either to challenge the trials or to watch. I'm not here to bully anybody, he thought to himself. I'm just here to draw out the killer. Clearing his throat, he looked around once more and then selected a spirit enhancement workshop. Considering that Bai Xiaochun was competing against Foundation establishment cultivators, there was little question about what would happen. The stone stele quickly began to glow, and then Bai Hao's name appeared on the list. At first, it wasn't even in the top 100, but it began to rise quickly. Soon it was in the top 30, and then it leapt, all the way into first place. It happened so quickly that few people even noticed what had occurred. But then, the light from the stone stele grew increasingly bright, and people began to gasp and look over. Bai Hao took first place? A 7-fold spirit enhancement. Heavens! That speed is incredible. This Bai Hao, he's not that bastard's son, is he? How could he have become so powerful so quickly? How is this possible? Even when Bai Qi was in Foundation establishment, the most he could do was a 6-fold spirit enhancement. I can't believe that Bai Hao can do a 7-fold enhancement. As the crowd buzzed with conversation, Bai Xiaochun cleared his throat and walked out of the spirit enhancement workshop. Seeing all the shocked glances being sent in his direction felt quite wonderful. HMMMPHH. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm here so my apprentice can feel what it's like to be the subject of worldwide adoration. Bai Xiaochun hadn't become so underhanded that he didn't feel embarrassed about competing with Foundation establishment cultivators when he was in the great circle of the gold core stage. Even still, he couldn't help but stick his chin up, wave his sleeve, and head toward the next trial. At the trial for soul medicine, there were even more people than at the trial for spirit enhancement. After all, spirit enhancement was a very difficult thing. Comparatively speaking, concocting soul medicine was actually much easier. And since the Bai clan was a necromancer clan, they were obviously talented in this regard. The highest name on the ranking list had used the time it takes an incense stick to burn to concoct 27 portions of low-grade soul medicine. After seeing that, Bai Xiaochun's spirit soared, and he quickly selected a soul medicine workshop. Before long, the same thing which had happened moments before happened again. After enough time passed for an incense stick to burn, Bai Hao's name appeared in first place in the soul medicine rankings. Furthermore, he had actually concocted 50 portions of low-grade soul medicine. That was shocking, to say the least. For someone in the Foundation establishment stage to do something like that was completely eye-catching, and as soon as the other members of the clan saw it, cries of disbelief rang out. First place. 50 portions, that's impossible. Bai Hao, I know him. He's a nobody. How could he have reached first place? Like the saying goes, a bird might not sing for years, but when it does, its song will shock everyone. Bai Xiaochun emerged to hear such conversation, and immediately felt quite pleased. However, he murmured, if your spirit is out there watching, there's no need to offer any thanks to Master. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Murmuring to himself, Bai Xiaochun strutted off to the flame conjuring trial. News about Bai Hao's name getting onto the spirit enhancement rankings quickly began to spread through the clan. Before long, it was the talk of the clan, and of course, the news soon reached Madame Kai. The area beneath the pagoda in the East District was filled with luxurious mansions. Inside one of them, Madame Kai smashed a flower vase onto the ground, her eyes blazing with killing intent. Kill him. We must kill him. He mustn't be allowed to rise to prominence. Standing in front of her was a young man with a grim expression on his face. He wore clothing just as luxurious as hers, and was extremely handsome. This was none other than that Bai Hao's older brother, Bai Qi. Looking down at the shattered remnants of the flower vase, and then back up at his mother with her raging killing intent, he said, Mother, please, calm down. He's nothing more than a bastard. There's no need to worry so much about him. Madame Kai looked up at her son and angrily said, maybe other people don't realize the truth, but surely you do? Can't you see how skilled he is in flame conjuring? If your father finds out about his talents, it would be a big threat to you. The boy has to die. Even as Madame Kai ground her teeth in frustration, Bai Qi chuckled. You're overthinking things, mother. The last time you sent people to kill him, the plan wasn't executed perfectly. As the clan chief, father obviously knew about it, and yet, did he say anything afterward? Did he do anything to punish you? In response to his words, Madame Kai's eyes widened. Mother, you really don't need to get all worked up over a small thing like this. If Bai Hao thinks he can make a break for fame, then I'll just go personally to cut him down a notch or two. Shaking his head, Bai Qi casually turned and walked away. After he left, Madame Kai thought about the matter more, and still did not feel at ease. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out a jade slip to transmit a message. I want him dead tonight. Outside the residence, Bai Qi's lips twisted up into a cold grin as he took out a bone slip, which contained a message regarding Bai Hao's current position. After discovering that he had gone to the flame conjuring trial, Bai Qi headed in the same direction, an expression of scorn on his face. Pretty soon, you're going to find out that no matter how hard you work, and no matter what you do, a single slap of my palm can reduce you to nothing. Bai Xiaochun was in a wonderful mood as he sped toward the flame conjuring trial. Quite a few clan members were following along behind him, extremely curious to see what would happen next. He's going toward the flame conjuring trial. He's already taken first place in the Foundation establishment trials for spirit enhancement and soul medicine. If he does the same with flame conjuring, then Bai Hao will definitely rise to prominence with incredible speed. Something seems strange about all this, though. Bai Hao always had a low position and seemed cowardly and weak. Why is he suddenly showing off like this? Furthermore, it's hard to believe he has such heaven-defying talent in spirit enhancement. As the discussions raged, Bai Xiaochun hurried along to the trial for flame conjuring. Upon arriving, he found a stone stele that was clearly much larger than the other stone steles in the other locations. 3 concentric rings of conjuring stations could be seen at the bottom of the stone stele. Furthermore, quite a crowd was present, including many servants. Obviously, people had already heard about Bai Hao's performances earlier and had come to watch. As soon as he appeared, more conversations rose up. He's here. Bai Hao is here. In one day, he's already taken first place in the trials for spirit enhancement and soul medicine. I'm going to bet that he'll also acquire a shocking rank in the flame conjuring rankings. Nice job, Bai Hao. Nobody ever noticed you before, but that was because you were keeping your true potential hidden. Bai Xiaochun strode forward through the crowd, which parted to make way for him. Inside, he was sighing repeatedly. Bai Hao, my apprentice, all of this praise belongs to you. With your talent in flame concocting, I'm sure you would do even better than me. The more Bai Xiaochun thought about how tragically Bai Hao had died, the more he felt like it was a huge pity. The Bai clan owes you, and as your master, I'm going to make sure you get what's yours. In addition to flushing out your killer, I have another goal. I want to see the reaction of both your father and the clan as a whole when you prove how talented you are. Eyes sparkling, he headed toward one of the conjuring workstations and then closed himself inside. Outside, the audience looked on in anticipation. The matter had even drawn the attention of some of the clan elders, many of whom left their mansions to come see what was going on for themselves. As of this moment, the entire Bai clan was being shaken by Bai Xiaochun's shocking performance. Not too long after he entered the conjuring workstation, 8 beams of light appeared off in the distance, in the lead position of which was an eye-catching young man in the great circle of core formation. The group which accompanied him were all chosen of the Bai clan who followed him blindly wherever he went. The arrival of the group caused another commotion in the crowd. Bai Qi, a chosen from the direct bloodline, officially proclaimed as the Qilin son of the Bai clan. Bai Qi, interesting. He and Bai Hao actually have the same father but different mothers. The clan members and servants in the area looked on with glittering eyes, and many of them made way for the new arrivals. Some of the clan members gazed upon Bai Qi with zealous passion. To them, he was the number one chosen of his generation, the crown prince of the clan. Such clan members stepped forward and offered formal greetings. However, there were others in the crowd who gave little more than hostile snorts. Those people were from other, auxiliary bloodlines. It was only natural for there to be tension between different bloodlines in a clan, especially when it came to competition between the chosen members. Bai Qi nodded in response to the clan members who were offering formal greetings, then glanced around at the hundreds of people and said, "Quite a little crowd we have here. I heard something's going on. What could it be?" Despite the broad smile on his face, he was actually feeling very displeased. Among the clan members who clearly revered Bai Qi was a young man who stepped forward and respectfully said, "Crown Prince, everybody's here because Bai Hao took first place in the other 2 trials by fire. Now that he's come to the trial for flame conjuring, we're all here to see what happens." "Oh, Bai Hao, huh? Seems my worthless little brother has attracted quite a bit of attention. Alright, well, as his older brother I guess I might as well wait around to congratulate him." As soon as these words left his mouth, profound gleams could be seen in the eyes of many others in the area. Obviously, everyone was well aware of the relationship between Bai Qi and Bai Hao. It was in that moment that Bai Hao's name suddenly lit up on the stone stele, in first place, with the words 7-colored flame next to it. Bai Xiaochun had been careful to limit his success to 7-colored flame. After all, Bai Hao was supposed to be a foundation establishment cultivator, and although he was trying to make a scene, he didn't want to make things too unrealistic, otherwise it could lead to trouble. 7-colored flame was where he chose to limit things, the standard for master necromancers. Master necromancers were rare among foundation establishment cultivators, and would cause a stir wherever they appeared, even in Giant Ghost City. 7-colored flame. This Bai Hao, he's actually a master necromancer. Heavens, how is that possible? Even a lot of the clan elders in the core formation stage aren't master necromancers. People in the crowd were starting to go crazy, both direct bloodline descendants and people from the auxiliary bloodlines. As for the clan elders who had come to observe, they were visibly moved. Bai Qi's face was expressionless, and yet, inside, he was feeling extremely displeased. It was even possible to see a grim glint in his eyes. As the crowd clamored, Bai Xiaochun emerged from the conjuring workstation, and was very pleased by what he heard. As of this point, he was fairly certain that he had achieved his goal of establishing a high profile. Now that he had taken first place in all of the trials by fire, it was highly likely that whoever was responsible for Bai Hao's death would accelerate their plans. Furthermore, he would soon see what the clan chief felt about the whole thing. In almost the exact same instant that he stepped out into the open, numerous gazes fell upon him. There were gazes of jealousy, confusion, shock, and various other emotions. As for Bai Qi, his eyes were cold and filled with disgust. Bai Xiaochun quickly noticed Bai Qi, and although it was his first time seeing Bai Hao's older brother, based on his cultivation base and expression, it was easy to identify him. So that's Bai Qi, huh? He thought, standing there staring at him with narrowed eyes. Everyone could see what was happening, and soon, the crowd quieted down. Many of the people from the auxiliary bloodlines looked over, curious about what exactly would happen between the two brothers. Bai Qi looked over and coolly said, "Feeling proud of yourself?" His cultivation base was in the great circle of core formation, which caused significant pressure to weigh down on the crowd as his voice echoed out with thunderous might. Quite a few people even backed up a bit. Taking first place in all 3 trials is quite an accomplishment, he continued, "I'll give you that." Although Bai Qi appeared to be offering words of congratulation, the coldness in his tone didn't seem congratulatory at all. Bai Xiaochun's eyes sparkled as he continued to stare at Bai Qi and wait for him to make his point. Whatever he said would reveal the true nature of his relationship with Bai Hao. Unfortunately, Bai Qi continued in a cool tone, "You pushed things a bit too far, Bai Hao. Nobody else here knows you very well, but as your older brother, I do. How could you possibly accomplish something like this on your own? Clearly, you used some underhanded method to cheat. How very disappointing of you." With that, Bai Qi extended his right hand to reveal a command medallion, which he waved at the stone stele. Instantly, Bai Hao's name on the ranking list faded away and disappeared. Shockingly, Bai Qi had used his status as crown prince to simply remove Bai Hao's name. At first, everyone in the area was shocked, but then, they broke out into a hubbub. Cheating? See, I told you so. Bai Hao was always weak and cowardly. How could he suddenly rise to prominence like that? As it turns out, he was cheating. Interesting. Well, nobody will ever be able to say for sure whether he was actually cheating or not. Meanwhile, Bai Qi was looking coldly at Bai Xiaochun, doing nothing to conceal the disdain and contempt in his eyes. It was almost as if he were using his gaze to tell Bai Xiaochun that no matter what he did, he could reduce him to nothing with the single slap of a palm. Bai Xiaochun stood there looking quietly at Bai Qi. For some reason, he wasn't angry at how he had wiped away Bai Hao's name from the stone stele, and presumably, the stone steles for spirit enhancement and soul medicine. In fact, there wasn't even a need for Bai Xiaochun to ponder the matter. He instantly realized that news about him supposedly cheating would fill the entire clan. The fact that Bai Qi had taken the initiative to wipe out Bai Hao's rankings without even investigating the matter was extremely telling. This was Bai Hao's older brother, and clearly, he treated him just as coldly as the stories had indicated he would. He didn't even give me a chance to explain. Bai Xiaochun thought with a sigh. He wasn't angry, just sad for Bai Hao. Well, considering that this is how Madame Kai and Bai Qi treat Bai Hao, I can be fairly certain of his father's attitude. As he stood there quietly, Bai Qi's voice could once again be heard. Because of the status father and I hold in the clan, most others would feel uncomfortable chiding you, Bai Hao. But not me. You're a bastard son, and have no right to put your name on the clan's ranking steles. As your older brother, I'd always hoped you would be able to make a name for yourself, and actually came here to congratulate you. Unfortunately, though, you turned out to be nothing more than a huge disappointment. Shaking his head, Bai Qi turned to the crowd and clasped hands. Fellow clan members, I, Bai Qi, would like to apologize to all of you for what Bai Hao has done. After bowing deeply, he ignored Bai Xiaochun, turned, and became a bright beam of light that shot off into the distance. Bai Xiaochun stood there silently, feeling all of the gazes upon him. After a moment passed, he smiled faintly, then turned and walked away. It seems I underestimated Bai Qi. Apparently he can do a bit of scheming. After returning to his hut in the North District, he sat down cross-legged to think. Well, this was a fishing expedition, that's all, and my line has been tossed out. Bai Qi can erase Bai Hao's name from the rankings, but he can't make everyone forget what happened. Right now, I should probably give the killer a chance to make a move. He considered going out for a walk immediately, but after looking up to check the time, he decided to close his eyes and work on his undying live forever technique instead. As evening fell, an afterimage appeared as a clone stepped out from Bai Xiaochun, who quickly headed outside of the clan. Simultaneously, Bai Xiaochun's true self masked his own aura. Unless someone opened the door of his hut and stepped inside, they would have no way of knowing he was there. Outside of the Bai clan, his fire clone sped along with an expressionless face, making sure to keep his cultivation base at the foundation establishment level as he headed in the direction of Giant Ghost City. Before much time passed, his expression flickered, and he stopped in place. Turning, he saw a beam of light shooting toward him at top speed. Within the beam of light was a black-robed man who fairly burst with a murderous aura. A wicked grin covered his face, and his eyes flickered with killing intent. Surrounding him was a cloud of vengeful souls, and soul fluctuations that instantly identified him as a necromancer. This was the very same man whom Bai Xiaochun had spotted talking to Madame Kai in the pagoda when he first arrived at the clan. "I've been waiting for you for a while now," Bai Xiaochun said loudly. "It's about time you showed up." When the man in black saw Bai Xiaochun standing there as if he were waiting, he seemed surprised. The truth was that he had been waiting this entire time for a chance to get at Bai Hao, but hadn't dared to make a move inside the clan itself. Eventually, the enraged Madame Kai had finally convinced him to do just that, and had even guaranteed his safety. However, just when he had been about to attack Bai Hao inside the clan, to his surprise, he discovered that he had left. At first, he had been delighted, and had immediately given chase. But now, when he saw the frigid look in Bai Xiaochun's eyes, and heard his words, he suddenly felt strangely shocked. "You." Bai Xiaochun waved his finger at the man, which caused frigid qi to spring up all around him. Before the man in black could react, he was completely surrounded, causing his face to fall. He wanted to flee, but quickly realized that he was frozen in place. "Impossible," he shrieked, looking like he had just seen a ghost. His mind was reeling, filled with an intense sensation of imminent crisis. Biting his tongue and spitting blood out of his mouth, he caused the souls he had brought with him to all detonate. However, that wasn't all he did. His goal was to break free from the frigid qi, and because he didn't trust the power of the soul detonations to do that on their own, he also resorted to detonating part of his own body. A boom rang out as his lower half exploded, sending his upper torso speeding backward, face pale and filled with intense terror. "You're not Bai Hao." Trembling, the man in black prepared to flee. However, that was when Bai Xiaochun took a step forward, appearing directly in front of him. Reaching out, he placed his hand on top of the screaming man's head. "Fellow Taoist, please forgive." Before he could finish, his body went stiff, and his eyes bulged out. His mind began to reel, and the last thing he heard was Bai Xiaochun saying one word. "Soul search." The majority of cultivators had soul-searching techniques of one sort or another. Most such techniques didn't even count as divine abilities. They were simply ways of sending divine sense into the mind of another person and rifling through their memories in domineering fashion. Although there were certain tricks and methods that differed between techniques, most of them were used as a way to prevent the target's soul from being harmed in the process. Unfortunately for the man in black, Bai Xiaochun wasn't adept with soul searching, and didn't possess any tricks or special methods. Furthermore, he wasn't doing the soul search for himself, but rather, for the sake of Bai Hao. As the clone soul searched the man in black, various scenes became visible to his true self back in the Bai clan. "Your name is Shu Hai. Ah, so that's what happened. It really was Madame Kai." When Bai Hao publicly revealed that he had reached Foundation establishment, she arranged for dozens of assassins to go after him. Bai Hao was only an early Foundation establishment, but was no fool. He was ready, and fought back tenaciously as they chased him. He even used multicolored flame. In the end, he evaded most of the assassins, and even killed some of them. Bai Xiaochun was shaken by what he saw in the memories of the man in black, especially the casual way in which Bai Hao wielded his multicolored flame. Bai Xiaochun could also tell that the black-robed man had been equally shocked. After all, he was only a master necromancer, without a deep understanding of the things he had been seeing. However, Bai Xiaochun was different. What he did, it was. He took a deep breath, taken aback at how extraordinary Bai Hao had been, and also profoundly sad at how things had ended for him. What a pity that in the end, his cultivation base was just too weak. He was hit with this man's exterminating soulbrand, and then teleported away, his heart and blood vessels in ruins. In the end, Bai Xiaochun was certain that Bai Hao had been killed, not just because of his cultivation base breakthrough, but because of his skill with flame conjuring. Madame Kai, so, she's the one who has Bai Hao's research notes. Another afterimage appeared as Bai Xiaochun's water clone stepped out. Without the slightest hesitation, he left the hut, keeping all cultivation base fluctuations hidden as he headed toward the pagoda where Bai Xiaochun had first seen Madame Kai. Given the current level of Bai Xiaochun's divine sense, not even nascent soul cultivators would be able to detect him unless they tried extremely hard. Only a diva patriarch would be able to. However, the clan's diva patriarch wouldn't have his divine sense out in the clan at all times, nor would he be constantly paying attention to every minor thing that happened. Bai Xiaochun's water clone crept along through the night until he was near the pagoda. Keeping his aura carefully concealed, he made his way toward Madame Kai's mansion. Just when the water clone was about to start searching for Bai Hao's notes, his expression flickered, and he stopped in place, looking into the mansion at one particular room where Madame Kai and Bai Qi were having a conversation. "Here," Madame Kai said, sounding a bit anxious, "you need to spend more time studying that son of a bitch Bai Hao's notes. Once you master the ability to conjure 11-colored flame, the patriarch will value you even more than he does already. Only then will he agree to open the ancestral land for you. The ancestral land is where the Bai clan's only diva soul is housed. Once the ancestral land is opened, anyone in the clan can enter, and although technically speaking any of them could get the diva soul, if the patriarch agrees that it should go to you, then everything will be a formality. The auxiliary bloodlines will have nothing to say about the matter, and you'll be able to get the diva soul. Once you have that diva soul, you can trade it for a full set of 5 elements diva beast souls, and then form your nascent soul. Our clan is huge, and many people have their eyes on that set of diva beast souls. Not even your father could get it for you." With that, Madame Kai went on to offer further exhortations on the subject. As Bai Xiaochun's water clone stood there listening to Madame Kai and her son talking, his eyes began to shine brightly. Already, he had learned quite a bit about the situation. Bai Qi clearly was a chosen member of the Bai clan, with extraordinary necromantic talents. Although he wasn't at the terrestrial rank yet, he was obviously on the verge of mastering 11-colored flame. Considering that Bai Qi was trying to win the approval of the clan's patriarch, then based on what Bai Xiaochun had learned earlier, it seemed obvious that the clan was grooming him to participate in the competition to become the successor of the Hell Emperor. Obviously, with his necromantic talents and a nascent soul cultivation base, he would have a good chance at succeeding. Of course, all of that was assuming that he could reach the nascent soul stage. The Bai clan was huge, with numerous bloodlines all competing against each other. Therefore, it wasn't possible for the clan to simply give the 5 elements diva beast souls to Bai Qi outright. Therefore, Madame Kai and Bai Qi were attempting to arrange for the so-called ancestral land trial by fire as the vehicle to achieve their aim. A diva soul would be up for grabs in that trial by fire, and whoever got it could exchange it for a full set of diva beast souls. If they could secretly arrange for Bai Qi to be the one to get the diva soul, and no unforeseen circumstances arose, then the other bloodlines in the clan wouldn't be able to do anything about it. All of that, though, was contingent on the clan's diva patriarch approving of the plan. Based on what Bai Xiaochun's clone could sense in Madame Kai's tone of voice, she was thoroughly convinced that she could convince the diva patriarch to agree. So, they're going to open the ancestral land just for Bai Qi, he thought, his heart pounding at the significance of this opportunity. For most people, getting a diva soul is just a formality on the way to getting a set of 5 elements diva beast souls. But I'm different, I can directly absorb them. He grinned, his eyes sparkling. It was in that very moment that, inside the mansion, Madame Kai's face fell. Reaching down, she pulled a jade slip out of her bag of holding, a life slip which was currently crumbling to pieces. Shu Hai is dead. Bai Qi's eyes went wide as he looked over at the crumbling jade slip. Shu Hai had been sent to kill Bai Hao, and although his cultivation base wasn't as powerful as Bai Qi's, he was still in core formation. For a core formation cultivator to perish in a fight with a foundation establishment cultivator was extremely unusual. How is that even possible? Madame Kai said, clearly alarmed. That bitch's son is only in foundation establishment. Don't tell me that your father. Calm down, mother. There's no way that Shu Hai was killed by Bai Hao, and there's also no way that father was there. If I'm not mistaken, the bitch's son must have come across some good fortune, and got something or someone to help him. Shu Hai must have been killed by whoever Bai Hao has helping him. Bai Qi's eyes began to shine with cold light. Whoever it is that has dared to interfere with Bai clan matters has overstepped their bounds, no matter who they are. Bai Xiaochun's water clone stood outside the mansion, rubbing his nose. He could sense what was happening with the fire clone, who had never expected Shu Hai to be so unable to deal with pain. In almost the same moment that the soul search finished, he expired. In response to Bai Qi's words, Madame Kai fought to get herself under control. She wasn't worried about Bai Hao having help from outside the clan. No, she feared interference on the part of her husband. However, after considering the matter closely, she decided that it was extremely unlikely that her husband had played a part in what had just happened. Well, it doesn't matter exactly what happened, she said. Bai Hao can't be left alive. Long delays usually lead to trouble. Bai Qi smiled coldly. Don't worry, mother. Worst case scenario, we can just wait until the patriarch opens the ancestral land. If I have to, I'll personally kill him there. Even if he does have someone helping him, I refuse to believe that they would follow him into the ancestral land. Seeing how confident Bai Qi was, Madame Kai finally sighed and nodded. Fine, I'll go talk with your father and persuade him to convince the patriarch to open the ancestral land within the next few months. Outside the mansion, Bai Xiaochun's clone smiled coldly. At the same time, his opinion of this mother and son team grew even lower. Opening the ancestral land, huh? Well, that works just fine. I'll just handle everything in one fell swoop. Having made his decision, he turned and vanished into the night. Back in his hut in the North District, Bai Xiaochun waited for his two clones to return before opening his eyes. Making a scene in the clan got me a lot of information and some good news. Ancestral land, huh? The thought of getting his hands on a fourth diva soul caused Bai Xiaochun's heart to pound with excitement. I can get Bai Hao's notes and the diva soul all in that ancestral land. Suddenly, he frowned. However, I need to go in fully prepared. If I make a move inside the ancestral land, it will likely cause a commotion in the entire clan. I have to make sure I can stay safe. With that, he walked out of his hut and looked up into the sky to observe the Bai clan's defensive spell formation. After a moment of silence, Bai Xiaochun took a few steps forward and then suddenly vanished. When he reappeared, he was completely outside of the clan. It still hurt to use his undying hex in this way, but not as badly as before. Turning around, he took another step, vanished, and reappeared in the North District. So, my undying hex can pierce through this spell formation. However, I can't rely only on that. I need to attack the problem from two different angles to be completely safe. For the following several days, he surreptitiously studied the Bai clan's spell formation, performing various experiments to try to figure out another way to deal with it. Unfortunately, he wasn't very adept at working with spell formations. Besides, this was the Wildlands, and most of the methods he knew about for breaking spell formations required items or methods powered by the spiritual energy in Heavenspan River water. Obviously, those methods wouldn't work out here in the Wildlands. I guess I need to use Wildlands methods. I should probably ask Zhou Yixing about this. He immediately sent a message to Zhou Yixing and asked for him to come up with some ways to destabilize the spell formation. Zhou Yixing and Li Feng had both taken up residence in Giant Ghost City itself. Of course, since they didn't get along, they lived separately. As soon as Zhou Yixing got a message from Bai Xiaochun, he was very excited, at least, until he checked the actual content of the message, whereupon he was stunned. After a moment of hesitation, he sent a reply. I can't do that. A clan like the Bai clan is definitely going to have an incredible defensive spell formation. How am I supposed to do anything to that kind of formation? Recently, he had run into Li Feng on a few occasions, and noticed the pleased expression on his face. That had immediately led Zhou Yixing to the conclusion that Li Feng had accomplished some task for Bai Xiaochun. As he thought about that fact, Zhou Yixing's anxiety mounted, and he gritted his teeth. When Bai Xiaochun saw Zhou Yixing's reply, he frowned, and was just about to send a message to Li Feng when, all of a sudden, another message came in from Zhou Yixing. Grandmaster Bai, I thought of a way. It will be very expensive, but it will definitely work. All you have to do is use murder soul spikes. You would need a lot of them, probably at least 100. However, you could insert them into the spell formation from inside the clan, and then, if you detonated them all at the right time, it would definitely crack the thing open. However, it would only buy you a few breaths worth of time before the damage repaired itself. Also, murder soul spikes are very expensive. I can't really afford to purchase them on my own. After explaining everything he knew, Zhou Yixing couldn't help but think that the method he had come up with was just too expensive. Back in the Bai clan, though, Bai Xiaochun's eyes were shining brightly. As far as he was concerned, money wasn't a big problem. As long as it bought him a greater chance of escaping, then it would be worth it. He immediately sent a message back to Zhou Yixing, setting a time and place for him to meet one of his clones. Before long, that very clone left the clan, bag of holding in hand. Soon, Zhou Yixing and Bai Xiaochun's clone met up. Before Zhou Yixing could even say anything, the clone slapped his bag of holding and produced a pill furnace. It wasn't a very large pill furnace, but neither was it small. When it thumped down onto the ground in front of Zhou Yixing, his jaw dropped. Swishing his sleeve grandly, Bai Xiaochun's clone said, "Take that and go buy the murder soul spikes." Zhou Yixing hesitated for a moment, then took a step forward and opened the lid of the pill furnace. When he confirmed that it was full to the brim with Heavenspan River water, his eyes nearly fell out of his skull. The spiritual energy he felt in the Heavenspan River water left him shaking, and his mind reeling. Never in his entire life had he seen so much heavenspan river water, and he instantly realized that if he sold it, the profit would be difficult to put into words. Enough, or not? Bai Xiaochun's clone said proudly. After all, this wasn't even half of the water he had in his big bucket. Trembling, Zhou Yixing replied, enough. More than enough, don't skimp on the murder soul spikes. Also, buy me some teleportation talismans and extra vengeful souls. With that, the clone strutted off into the distance. As Zhou Yixing watched him go, he suddenly realized that this Grandmaster Bai was even more mysterious than he had realized. To casually produce so much heavenspan river water was something that no ordinary person could do. His determination to be a follower of Grandmaster Bai grew even stronger than before. It would take Zhou Yixing a bit of time to buy all of the murder soul spikes. After all, they were magical items that usually weren't available for bulk purchase. He would need to take some time hunting through Giant Ghost City to find enough. Considering that he wasn't familiar with the area, Zhou Yixing finally went to Li Feng and talked the matter over with him. Li Feng knew that this was a mission for Grandmaster Bai and didn't want to cause any trouble. Therefore, he cooperated with Zhou Yixing, even calling upon his own personal contacts to help track down murder soul spikes to Bai. Due to their cooperation on this mission, the animosity they felt toward each other began to fade. While Bai Xiaochun waited for his followers to accomplish their mission, he kept a low profile in the Bai clan. He rarely left his hut, preferring to spend most of his time cultivating his undying live forever technique. Unfortunately, because he was out in the wildlands, it was impossible for him to replenish his supply of medicinal pills. The upside was that he still had a lot of items he had embezzled during his time as a major general. The downside was that such items wouldn't take him very far. He was almost finished with his work on his undying tendons, and based on his estimations, his current supplies were probably sufficient to complete that work, but no more. I need to master the undying tendons before I go into that ancestral land. If I can make contact with the third shackle, then my poor little life will be much safer. Another decision he made was that he needed to perform an 11-fold spirit enhancement on his eternal parasol. Afterward, the parasol looked different. The basic shape was the same, but now it looked like it was made from metal. It was pitch black, and radiated an intense, murderous aura. Furthermore, the ghost face which would appear on its surface looked even more fierce and bizarre. It's too bad I'm running so low on souls, he sighed. If he'd had enough souls, he would have performed 11-fold spirit enhancements on his clothing. Unfortunately, that wasn't an option. After all, he needed to save up enough souls to try to conjure 12-colored flame, and even with his clones out secretly collecting souls, and the help of Zhou Yixing and Li Feng, that was still going to be difficult. He didn't even have enough heavenspan river water to buy all of the souls he needed. Thankfully, Bai Hao's notes about conjuring 12-colored flame had been extremely beneficial. In fact, other than his time spent in cultivation recently, he had focused almost completely on researching the formula for 12-colored flame. Because he didn't have enough souls on hand, he didn't dare to casually perform any experiments. He could only analyze the method mentally, and prepare himself for the moment in which he actually attempted to conjure the flame. Time passed. Before long, half a month had gone by. Bai Xiaochun's undying live forever technique was making progress, but his auguries regarding 12-colored flame had reached a bit of a bottleneck. I think I need to do an experiment. Taking a deep breath, he pulled out his soul-hoarding pagoda and counted how many vengeful souls he had. As it turned out, he had enough for 3 attempts. After some thought, he made his decision. After using his mask to cover up the aura of the multicolored flame, he began conjuring. Vengeful souls flew out one after another, and flames appeared in his palm. Eventually, 11 colors were present, and Bai Xiaochun was starting to get very nervous. After all, if he failed, it would be a huge waste of resources. Settling his chi and calming his mind, he cautiously began his attempt to conjure 12-colored flame. As the masses of vengeful souls poured into the 11-colored flame, Bai Xiaochun's expression turned very serious. He also began to work more slowly. At one point, he suddenly began to lose control, and the flame began to flicker. Without any hesitation, he summoned one of his clones, who worked with him to stabilize the flame before he continued. Utilizing the assistance of his clones was one of the ideas Bai Xiaochun had come up with in his planning. As it turned out, using 2 clones to help didn't do any more good than using 1 clone. However he did it, it was still multitasking, and therefore, using 1 clone was the best technique. With the help of his solitary clone, the 11-colored flame grew stable, and more time passed. 2 hours later, he was finished with the first step of the process, and a 12th color was now visible in the sea of fire that surrounded him. Bai Hao was absolutely right. Fire represents something else, and is not a material object. Feeling very pleased, he took a deep breath and prepared to finish the task at hand. As of this moment, he could easily split the sea of fire into 2 parts and make 2 portions of mid-grade soul medicine. Or, he could converge the sea into a single tongue of multicolored flame. Never could he have imagined that his first attempt at conjuring 12-colored flame would turn out to be a success. Ha ha ha, it turns out that Bai Xiaochun really is a genius. With that, he snapped his hand closed to pull the sea together into the form of a tongue of 12-colored flame. However, that was when something unexpected occurred. Even as the sea of fire began to shrink down, it went completely out of control. Bai Xiaochun's face fell with fear as a terrifying aura erupted out in all directions. The shocking detonation of the 12-colored flame scared Bai Xiaochun so much that he let out a shriek. Any other necromancer, even one in the terrestrial rank, would have been completely incapable of reacting in time. However, because of Bai Xiaochun's extensive experience with exploding pill furnaces, he was always on guard and ready for situations like this. Therefore, he reacted with lightning speed. He quickly relaxed his hands and performed an incantation gesture that sent frigid qi shooting out. Almost instantly, both hands were shoving down onto the unstable 12-colored flame. As the flame was suppressed, the fire died down, revealing 2 glittering portions of mid-grade soul medicine. Anyone else who saw 2 portions of mid-grade soul medicine would be elated, but Bai Xiaochun was scowling on the verge of tears. "I didn't want medicine," he said, tugging at his hair in despair. "I wanted flame. What happened?" After thinking back to everything he had done during the process, he couldn't think of any area where he'd gone wrong. Why did it end up becoming medicine instead of multicolored flame? The mere thought of the terrifying power he had sensed in the 12-colored flame left Bai Xiaochun trembling with residual fear. Don't tell me that I'm going to start experiencing the same kind of accidents with flame conjuring as I did with medicine concocting? He shivered. After a long moment passed, he looked at his soul-hoarding pagoda and tried to decide whether or not to perform another experiment. After all, that was the only way to truly figure out what he had done wrong. Gritting his teeth, he produced more vengeful souls and proceeded to conjure another 11-colored flame. At that point, he hesitated. "I can't do it here," he thought. Eyes turning up in thought, he eventually put his clone and the 11-colored flame away, and then left with his soul-hoarding pagoda. Taking advantage of the darkness of night, he left the North District and made his way to the East District. That way, even if an accident occurs, I can still rest at ease. Clearing his throat, he found an out-of-the-way ornamental rock formation in the East District with a large open cavity inside that he could work in. After setting up a spell formation, he took a deep breath and then pulled out his 11-colored flame. Then his clone appeared, and he began to conjure the 12th color in the flame. It was in the still of night that he used the power of the mask to suppress the pressure of the flame. Not even someone standing directly next to the ornamental rocks would have noticed what was happening, or would have been able to detect the incredible power brewing inside. Bai Xiaochun was very nervous, and his clone was sweating visibly. As the two of them worked together, things went smoothly for about 2 hours. Then, a 12th color appeared within the sea of fire. All he had to do was shrink the sea down into a tongue of flame, and he would be finished. However, at that point, he paused. It should work this time, right? He thought, blinking a few times as the 12-colored flame began to shrink down. That was when unstable fluctuations suddenly sprang up within the sea of fire. Explosive power erupted in a tempest that caused a sensation of deadly crisis to instantly rise up in Bai Xiaochun. Letting out an involuntary shriek, he tried to adjust the flame to stop the explosion, but the power was even more intense than before. No matter what adjustments he made, nothing did any good, and in fact, rumbling sounds echoed out as wildly destructive flames began to spread out in all directions. Bai Xiaochun screamed and flew backward, pulling his clone back into him and then using the power of his undying hex to vanish. As for the sea of fire, it rumbled out in all directions, destroying the ornamental rocks and consuming everything in the area. Strangely, even as the sea of fire devoured everything in the area and then vanished, the night sky up above turned bright red. Huge red clouds could be seen, which caused widespread chaos within the Bai clan. Before anyone could react, thunder crackled, and something happened that left everyone astonished. An endless rain of fire began to fall from above. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.